Dobry wieczór Państwu. Witamy bardzo serdecznie. Cieszymy się, że tak wiele osób przybyło na spotkanie z Arlie Russel Hochschild, autorką wielu wspaniałych książek. Ostatnia, która wyszła w Polsce, to była Obcy w swoim domu, wydana przez Wydawnictwo Krytyki Politycznej, ale dzisiaj spotykamy się z okazji wydania nowej książki Arlie Russel Hochschild, Skradziona, duma, Strata, wstyd i triumf prawicy. To jest ta książka świeżutka i dopiero co przetłumaczona. Będziemy rozmawiały po angielsku. Jeśli ktoś z Państwa potrzebuje słuchawek i tłumaczenia, to zachęcam do tego, żeby teraz się jeszcze w nie zaopatrzyć. A jeśli wszyscy już mają słuchawki, to jeszcze Państwu powiem, że nasza rozmowa potrwa około godziny i ona będzie transmitowana, a potem przejdziemy do części, która już będzie bez transmisji, ale będzie otwarta dla Państwa pytań. Także będą mogli Państwo dopytać o to wszystko, o co ja zapytać nie zdążę. I jeszcze też od razu, żeby mieć za sobą te ogłoszenia, powiem Państwu, że po tym wszystkim Arlie zgodziła się podpisywać swoją książkę. Gdyby tak się złożyło, że Państwo jej akurat przy sobie nie mają, to mogą się Państwo udać do księgarni muzealnej na drugą stronę i tam ją Państwo znajdą. Także tak chyba wszystko powiedziałam, tak mi się wydaje i możemy przejść. Arlie, it was just a bit of announcements, excuse us. And so I wanted to start from this first moment of your book, because you open your book with a series of events starting in April 2017. And you place us, readers, in the office of the mayor of the city of Pikeville, Donovan Blackburn, who has been called in by Matthew Heimbach, the organizer of the neo-Nazi march, and he wants the city's permit to walk down the town street with this march. Why do you think that this very event is so emblematic? Why did you choose it as a starting point for your book?
Thank you for this question, and thank you that I'm speaking in English and not Polish. Let me first paint the picture. We are in Pikeville, Kentucky. This is in the middle of the United States, on the eastern middle. It is, and we're in eastern part of Kentucky. Coal jobs used to be a point of great pride. You know, we kept the lights on with our coal. We World War I, World War II with our coal. Coal jobs are gone. And opiates didn't used to be a problem. Opiates have come in, big drug addiction problem. Jobs gone, drugs in, and then I hear that a neo-Nazi-led white nationalist march is coming to this town. Real problems, bad answer. I thought, this is a perfect storm. And I'm a sociologist. I like listening to people's stories and going to where they live and getting to know them. So I wanted to understand why in this area that used to be voting Democratic, it used to be FDR, Roosevelt, New Deal Democrats that voted for Bill Clinton twice. In that very area, over the last 3 elections, 80% of registered voters voted for Donald Trump. So I am there from Berkeley, California, to kind of try and get to know people, person to person to person, and move into this perfect storm. So that's why I'm there.
And maybe a few words more about your protagonists, because you meet a lot of people on your way. Donovan Blackburn is one of them, the mayor of the city, but there is also Matthew Heimbach, the neo-Nazi leader. And how do you meet them? Because there is a lot of people and you follow them along the years and you listen to their stories as they develop.
Yes, so you're interested especially in Heimbach, yeah. Well, he agreed to talk with me, so I said, well, good, I really would like to sit down with you and understand what brings you here to Pikeville. And he was very interested. He knew that I wrote books. He wanted a little publicity. Finally, someone who would listen to him. And he talked in paragraphs, very articulate, very smart, on the autism spectrum, which he tells me freely in the first half an hour as we're having coffee. And I ask him, what brings you to Pikeville, Kentucky? I know what brings me, but what brings you? And he tells me, oh, he really feels like he is himself a hillbilly, which is the name for people born in this Appalachian region. And he believes that neither the Democratic Party nor the Republican Party have done anything for people in this downwardly mobile region. And he thinks they need fascism, but he doesn't use the word fascism himself. He just avoids that. He just thinks, well, democracy is very messy and hard to get what you want. And he has brought behind him people from every extremist group, from the KKK, the ones that dress in sheets and terrify blacks, the neo-Nazis, there are other racist groups. And they are all, so what I have done is interview the town leaders and the people who could be hurt by the neo-Nazi-led parade. That is, I interview Black people. I interview a Holocaust survivor who is now a labor lawyer, wonderful guy, and then an imam that officiates in a local mosque. So those are the potential victims. So we have the perpetrators, the victims, and then I wanted to talk to people top to bottom and side to side. And the people at the top were a retired governor Democratic governor of the state of Kentucky, and the mayor of the town, and at the bottom were recovering addicts in jail. There was a prison release program that if you recovered from your addiction, you could get time off of your jail sentence. So many of those people who were prisoners and addicts were accused of the crime of selling drugs. And to tell you the truth, the most insightful interviews came from the bottom. There were people who had been ripped out of their society, been pushed down to the bottom of it, and who had to think about how they came to be who they were. So That was the design of the book, and it took me over 6 or 7 years. And what I would do is go back and forth from Berkeley, California, where my beloved husband, Adam Hochschild, a historian and fantastic intellectual, was, and talked to my Democratic friends in my Democratic blue, we call it bubble. And then I would go again to this red bubble. So blue bubble, red bubble, blue bubble, red bubble. And what I actually learned is that when I was in the red bubble, they would say, well, you come from Berkeley, okay, but you're here to get to know us. And I would say, I am worried about the divide in our country. We didn't used to have a divide. We do now. What's causing it? And let's have a talk about that. They were welcoming, but when I went back to my beloved blue bubble in Berkeley, California, people would say, oh, how do you get them to talk to you? Oh, why do you go? Yeah, actually, why? Why can't you study them from a distance? And I learned the most, actually, I think, important thing from those reactions. Because what I think was threatening to my friends, not my real friends, but friends in my bubble, was empathy. Why would I want to climb into the shoes of a person like Matthew Heimbach or any of the other people that voted for Donald Trump? Perhaps, I mean, the fact that this was suspect is interesting. I think this is really the most important thing I will have to say tonight, is that empathy itself came to be, I realized, seen as a little bit dangerous, a little bit like a contamination. If I talked with right-wing people, maybe I would be persuaded by their contamination. Or I already was contaminated. I'd gotten the diseases like COVID. Oh, I must actually be kind of a right-wing person to get to talk to other people like myself. That premise I ran into. And even worse, that empathy is kind of a weakness. It's a kind of a female kind of thing. You're giving actually comfort to the enemy, and it's a source of weakness. I think that misconception is based on the idea that there isn't a difference between wanting to understand how a person feels and feeling that way yourself. These are two entirely different things. I can sit for 4 hours with Matthew Heimbach, and I'll reassure you I feel nothing like he does. But I guess what I feel that it's a bad sign that people on the Democratic side of America feel that way about reaching across to, turns out to be blue collar, that is men and women without 4-year university degrees. That's the knife that cuts between people who don't have opportunity and people who do. And that I feel that it's dangerous for us to cut ourselves off. In the United States, the Democratic Party is increasingly marginal. It's increasingly doesn't represent people. It's losing people. So the last thing we need to do is say, oh, let's just be in a bubble and talk to each other. So I feel like my books, this one and the one before it, are a call to become bilingual, to speak two languages. One language is the language of rationality, and the other is the language of emotion, and that we must learn to tune in to the logic of emotion, because we are faced with a population in the United States, especially in the heartland of MAGA, where I was, where people have given up on rational leadership, and they have turned to a magic man. They have turned to Donald Trump, and he speaks emotion. And the thesis that I put forward in this book is that you have a shamed population who have fallen over and backing up for 3 decades. The white blue-collar class has sunk. It has been the loser of globalization. Meanwhile, back in Berkeley, in a university town, people with education, city-bound, they've been upwardly mobile. They've been the winners of globalization. So in this downwardly mobile area, people have often blamed themselves for their downward mobility. So you have both a loss of income and property, and there's a whole social logic that goes with that. That is, you're less likely to be with your partner, more people live alone, more people are in bad health, they weigh more, they get sick more. And in this area, there are more what they call diseases of despair for white, uneducated men due to alcoholism, drug addiction, and suicide. Highest rate is for white men, white non-college men. So all of that leads to a feeling of shame. And I believe that Donald Trump, billionaire that he is, New Yorker that he is a shamed man. And we could tuck that away as not relevant. But I think it gave him insight into, and he almost had a drill into a line of coal in this area. He drilled into their shame. And I think he provided a narrative, but he never wrote it out, and it's all said in emotions. And he's basically saying, oh, you've suffered loss. All of America is downward. It's gone to hell in a handbasket. It's America is like you, it's gone down. And it's taken your job, it's taken your well-being, it's taken your pride. But now you're feeling shamed. Who took your pride? It's those people over there, those immigrants, and those people on the left. So there's an us that we love and a them that we hate. These are what I would call the feeling rules in an emotions policy. We look at Donald Trump's economic policy. He's got an emotions policy, and it's got certain practices. And so he's put forward a narrative of stolen pride. And shall I go ahead to say?
Yes, but I wanted to ask you a question about these dynamics of pride and shame that you are talking about. Because there is think about the distribution. Who distributes the pride? Who gives away the shame? Like, who is shaming which part of the population, which part of the society? So we are in these dialectics of shame and pride. but somehow the populist right-wing politicians discovered these dynamics. And the leftist and democratic politicians have not. Why is that?
I think because we don't speak that second language, we can't tune in to a four-moment Donald Trump anti-shaming ritual. And I think it goes like this. Moment one, Donald Trump says something shocking, outrageous. He will say, the Haitian immigrants are eating our pet cats and pet dogs. Okay. That's moment one. Moment two in Donald Trump's anti-shaming ritual is that spokespeople, television figures, commentators will shame Donald Trump. How can you say that? That's a lie. That hurts the people you lie about. You're president. How can you say a crazy thing like that? Shame on you. That's moment two. Moment three, Donald Trump becomes the victim of the shamers. Look how they pick on me. Look how they're always criticizing me. They hate me, these shamers. Isn't that what it feels like to you, my MAGA followers? Doesn't that feel terrible to be shamed all the time? And in fact, those critics are doing to me what they want to do to you. So let go of your shame. I will take it on. I am absorbing your shame. So it's off of you and it's on me, kind of like Jesus Christ. I will be the victim. I will hold it. That's moment three. And moment four, very opposite of Jesus Christ, is revenge at the shamers. Look, I will get back. This has not been just, and I'm getting back for me, but I'm getting back in retribution for their crime of shaming you. And I believe that the Democratic half of America tunes in to the first two moments of his anti-shaming ritual, his saying something outrageous and being shamed for it, and that the Republican half of America is tuning in to moment three when he becomes the victim, and four when he gets revenge. And we're not listening to the same story.
So the story is different for every part. But coming back to the Democrats, if they don't speak this language, how would you like to teach them to speak this language? Is it even possible?
Sure, of course it is. And we all know it. There's been a strange and sad finding in the United States, which is that when you compare how Democrats communicate across the political divide with how Republicans communicate across the political divide, Democrats are more likely to break off a conversation if someone says something they clearly disagree with than are Republicans. It's also true that Democrats know less about what Republicans think than Republicans know about what Democrats think. And so, poignantly, the very thing Democrats are bad at doing, which is sitting down to discuss differences, is the thing Republicans need more. They're more likely to be in rural areas and small towns, and they want to sit down with you. You know, how does she look when she sneezes? How much water does she drink? You know, a sort of they need that more, and they're more likely to be relaxed and friendly and confess to things they don't like about their party. So I think what this means is that for people in liberal or left circles, we realize we have a job ahead of us. It's not hard. It makes you a bigger human being. It doesn't give aid to the other side. In fact, I think we are code breakers. Did I say that? No. You know, in World War II, there was a group of people who met in Bletchley Park outside of London, and they were looking at the messages that German generals sent to each other as to where armies would be deployed. And that group of people broke the code. They learned what the generals were saying to each other in a secret language. We need to be code breakers. That's what our job is. And I think those code breakers in the war, it said, shortened the war by 2 years. And I think we could do it too. So empathy is a tool. I think the best diplomats and people like best heads of state, like Nelson Mandela, they knew what the opposition thought. You know, he spoke Afrikaans, he spoke the enemy's language. So I think I invite us to become bilingual, to get really good at decoding messages so that we're tuning in to why Donald Trump's charisma is working so far.
But Donald Trump is presented by your protagonists, by the people you talk to in your book, as a good villain. It's like a person who is, they know he's not a very good person. They know his mistakes. They don't idealize him, but they say that he was tough and that he has a big personality. And you call him the lighting in the jar, like a person who is up to do like a big explosion in the end. How can he maintain this position? You know, after these elections, when he's lost, he came back, and he came back as a triumphant person, as this lighting in the jar. Exactly. Why can he hold this place? Why is he back?
So why do people believe him? Yeah, well, that's right. He lies, of course, and people on the left will say, "Ooh, you're lying, you're a morally bad person," or "Ooh, you're delusional, you're a sick person." But that's not analyzing anything. That's just judging and in the company of your people like you. So I think he does this lie, and notice it's a matter of something being stolen from you. Like everything else, he's turning to his people and saying, look, your job has been stolen from you by these immigrants, and your way of life is being stolen. You don't get to be proud of being an American, and your pride has been stolen. And now the election has been stolen. It's the kind of victim. I am the victim in chief, representing your victimhood. So it fits his narrative. And why he says whatever he says, he makes up things to say in order to make people feel the feelings that he can work with. So
it's like about lighting up the emotions and then gaining power from the fire of the emotions, and it cannot be stopped right now. But you talk about empathy, and use the idea of building the empathy bridges. Like we should be bilingual and we should buy bridges between us in order to communicate. But I've been thinking a lot about solidarity. This is the notion very important in Poland. Solidarity, I think, requires some sort of empathy and some sort of identity maybe, and some sort of thinking about the other person who you open to. And how do you see this relation between solidarity and empathy? The solidarity, yes.
I'm not sure I quite understood your question. How does solidarity...
Like the idea of solidarity, not the union in Poland, but the very idea of solidarity can be practiced in the society which is so totally divided.
Well, yes. And to be clear, this doesn't mean altering any of our beliefs. It's what we're trying to do is crack the code. Here's what I think, maybe this isn't quite what you've asked, but in the United States, there are many on the left who are saying, why don't the Republicans, especially these poor people in Kentucky, why don't they see that Donald Trump is taking things from him? One man who is black said, well, you know, what's happened is that when whites look at a black face, they listen to Donald Trump, who's peeing on their legs and calling it rain. So they don't see they're being hurt because of their racism. So I think that, okay, I have a hope, all right? I'm a hopeful person. I'm not a pessimist. That doesn't mean I'm not worried about fascism in my country. That's why I've spent the last decade writing books about MAGA, is because I'm extremely worried about it. But I think the best way, and there are Democrats who say, look, wait till the bad news accumulates. Donald Trump is taking away Medicaid. That's medical help for poor people. He's taking away food stamps from children. They won't be able to get food. He's taking away after-school programs. He's trying to dismantle public education. Bad news. Wait until enough bad news happens, and suddenly the dawn will light, and they will see that they have been wrong, that they have been misled by a criminal. Well, no, I think all of those things make it Republicans scratch their heads and privately worry. But I think we need two other things. First, a major Democratic leader. I think someone like Gavin Newsom, who is the governor of California, which is the largest and richest state in the country, could come forward with a narrative that counters the narrative of stolen pride. This is a narrative not of division, but of uniting together to create a bigger, better country. So a new narrative at that level. But I think we also need, at the same time, a second strategy of bridge building between more educated whites who tend to be on the Democratic side with blue-collar class. It used to be that labor unions in the United States were the middleman between the working class and the Democratic Party. But we don't have those labor unions anymore. Only some, I think 9% of private sector workers are in labor unions. So we don't have that bridge anymore. We need to make up another set of bridges. And I think these local community efforts need to be multiplied, and we need to get very creative about how to build other cross-class bridges. And together, the change narrative and a leader and these bridges, I think, would break the spell of the magic man.
Hopefully, yes, they will. But on the other hand side, we see that this triumphant march of the populism is not only the American problem. It's like everywhere. We can observe it in our part of the world as well. So do you think that we can get to think about some global solutions here? Are we capable of dialoguing here?
I think we can look country to country at the successes. We need to try everything and share tips in what can work. What has happened, I think, is that globalization has destabilized status systems within each nation. So it's happened in Poland, in Hungary, in Germany, it's happening in India, Brazil. It's happening everywhere. And the people that I came to know felt like their station in life, the degree to which they are recognized is melting, these people lived in social deserts often. The schools had closed, people had left, fewer meetings of community groups. So all the groups with whom you felt recognized and seen, the mirrors had disappeared and they felt alone. So I think that's kind of the architecture that's shifted for across nations. But we can compare tips on how to speak to people in that situation.
Yes, but the situation is getting worse and worse because we have the war in Ukraine very close to the Polish borders, and we are super scared that we will not get American help any longer because Donald Trump is protecting his own country and he's rather tough in his egoism. So how can we deal with America now? What tips would you give Europe right now in this very situation?
Adam, do you want this one? I don't know. I want you to know that there are a lot of us on our side, that is, people, non-Trump America. We are most of America, but we aren't coordinated. There are many, you should know that the Democratic Party doesn't represent all Democrats, and that there is much more activism underneath the Democratic Party. Organizations like MoveOn.org or Indivisible are holding vigils and local marches. So all I can say is that we've got a big job ahead, but don't any of us, we're your opposite number in this country. And I think the biggest problem is the bystander, people who are thinking, oh, it's not my job, I'm too frightened, I'm too old, what can we do? One woman told me this. She said she heard a person say, oh, I'm just one person, fascism is growing, what can I do? And the answer was, don't be just one person, join a group.
Yes, so we are trying to organize ourselves, but when you are talking about fascism, what do you have in mind? Like, what do you call fascism? What is fascism for you?
It is one man rule. It is destroying checks and balances. We have had a legislative sector of power, a judicial sector of power, an executive sector of power that are supposed to be checking on each other so that no one leader can become too powerful. But these are being overridden, and the right-wing media has grown stronger. So we need a better media presence. But that's what I think fascism is. And actually, Donald Trump has a kind of a big brother presence. You know the George Orwell's description of fascism as, always the image on every wall, big brother is telling you what to do, he's watching you. Well, it's a little like that with Donald Trump already. And I find myself tuning in because he has so many shifts in his policy. He keeps us all anxious. He keeps us all a little off balance because we don't know what the next move will be. So with that presence, Big Brother is repeating this anti-shaming 4-moment ritual, and he is repeating what I would call feeling rules, who to hate and who to love. And who's thus, us, and who is them. And we have to break the spell in these other ways.
Yeah, because this is the idea of unpredictability. He's not predictable. We never know what he's going to do and what he will do. And in Europe right now, we are threatened by his possible moves, and we don't know what will he do. And I wanted to ask you also, if I have you here, and this is a very important question for us. It is a question about the Russian-American relations right now, because we have another huge political factor. It's not only the pride and shame economy in the United States, but there are also Russian influences on American elections in favor of Donald Trump. So how do you think, how will he proceed with these Russian negotiations?
Americans scratch their head absolutely every day and all day. How could Donald Trump be seduced, by Vladimir Putin in this way? And he envies Putin. He too is now talking about Canada as, the next American state, and he has his own grandiose visions and wants to be like Putin. And what is Putin doing? He's, of course, aggrandizing pride of nation. And again, Putin has a MAGA strategy of look how far down we've come. We had this great Russian empire. I will make it great again. He's speaking to loss. And let me say something about the difference between loss and deprivation. This isn't about deprivation. This is about loss. And there was a great Nobel Prize-winning social psychologist who invented the idea of loss aversion. What he found is that people will spend twice as much money to get back something they once had than they will spend to get something that they want. How interesting, how interesting. So that's another psychological vulnerability into which fascism moves. And what we have to say is, no, don't go there.
Yes, we definitely don't want to go there, but there is a huge risk that we will be led there, and the problems will grow bigger and bigger. And I wanted to ask you the last question about your biggest discovery during the time you were talking to the people, writing this book, working on it. Was there a moment of complete astonishment, like something that was so big and so unexpected that you didn't know what to do with this fact?
It happened recently. After I published this book, and I gave copies to all the people that I had profiled in it. Do you see any mistakes? Look, the ideas are mine, but I hope I've been fair. So they knew that there were others in the book, and they saw how they were portrayed. Generally, they thought I was fair. And then my most extreme Trump advocate, a man who said, "Oh, God has sent us Donald Trump," that man, I was re-interviewing him for a New York Times op-ed that came out in June. You can check it out, to see how they were responding to all of these service cuts and the threat of rising prices. And I re-interviewed this man. And in the course of it, I'm asking him, are you worried about checks and balances and the loss of democracy? And he got mad at me. He said, "Oh, you people on the left are trying to make us out as fascists." Well, never, this was a shocker. Oh, God, I've worked so hard, and but I didn't respond to this. He could hear the echo of his own words. And I said, "Well, I think you know me by what I write. I've written 10 books. If you see a search for fascism in them, tell me." The next morning early, I got an email. "Dear Arlie, I'm really very sorry that I got angry at you yesterday, that it was a very bad day for me, and I hope you accept my apology." So I write back, "Yes, I do accept your apology. We all have bad days." Then I said, in Norway, they have a word, very long word, for communities of difference, where you go in knowing you have fundamental differences with the other people, but you don't walk away. And you see, is there some possible common ground? I said, maybe we could be a small version of a large idea. He wrote right back, "Great idea. We should have all the members that are in your book meeting for a day. We could do it at the recreation center of Cole Run. I'll make a call." And then he said, he's a businessman, and he likes to market things. He said, "We could say this comes from Appalachia. And in Appalachia, people live in what they call hollers. It's the narrow space between the mountains and the valleys. So you live in a hollow, holler, they call it. Let's not call this dialogue. Let's call it holler log." So on October 25th, I'm getting in the airplane from Berkeley, California, and going to Pikeville, Kentucky, and we're going to have our holler log gathering. That surprised me.
Yes, and this is the great source of hope as well. So I wanted to ask you, chciałam zapytać Państwa, czy Państwo chcieliby zadać pytanie? Tu się pojawiło pierwsze, już jest. Czy mamy mikrofon? O.
Thank you very much both for your books